Every proof for God can be hacked, except this one. For centuries, philosophers built brilliant cases for God's existence, fine-tuning, cosmological arguments, the complexity of DNA. Every single one has a backdoor. When I was defending my PhD in astrophysics, I realized even my best arguments have the same structural flaw. But then I discovered that God's opening line at Sinai uses the same security architecture your phone relies on every time you open your banking app. Today, you're going to see why the debate between believers and atheists has been stuck at the wrong layer for centuries. And I cracked padlock in the thumbnail. That's what every unsigned proof looks like to a cryptographer. I'm Dr. Yosef Wolf, and my mission is to uncover reality's blueprint by revealing how the physical is rooted in the spiritual. This is part 1 of a 4-part Passover proof series. Every part reveals a different layer of evidence that converges on one conclusion. And this first layer, once you see it, reframes every argument you've ever heard about whether God exists. Every bank transfer you authorize, every text you send, every prescription your doctor files electronically runs through the same invisible gate before it reaches the other side. The gate is called RSA encryption, a system invented in 1977 by 3 MIT mathematicians. It secures over 4 billion devices worldwide. Without it, online commerce collapses. Military communications become transparent, and the password you typed this morning is a postcard anyone can read. RSA works by a principle so counterintuitive, it took the entire history of mathematics to arrive at it. The security of a transmission depends not on what it says, but on an unforgeable stamp that only the true sender can produce. A forged dispatch with perfect reasoning is worthless. A verified one with imperfect reasoning is still trustworthy. The system privileges who sent it over what it contains. Hold that architecture in mind, because 3,300 years before Rivest, Shamir, and Edelman published their paper, God opened the most important communication in human history with a line that has puzzled commentators for millennia. He did not say, "I am the Lord your God who created the heavens and the earth." He said, "I am the Lord your God who took you out of the land of Egypt." Cryptographers have a name for their principle behind that choice. I call it the authentication code, and is the reason that debate between believers and skeptics have been stuck at the wrong layer for centuries. Now, you felt this without articulating it. Every year at the Pesach Seder, every Shabbos and Kiddush, every time the words reference who took us out of Egypt rather than who fashioned the cosmos, something tugs. Omnipotence is the stronger credential, yet Hashem chose a single historical event, witnessed by millions, as his opening line. And every time you reach for a design argument to defend a Torah's validity, you are handing the skeptic an unsigned letter. Brilliant reasoning, zero proof of origin. If you want to receive additional insights like these emailed directly to your inbox, sign up for my free Substack newsletter. The link is in the pinned comment under the subscribe button. Here's where it gets structural. In cryptography, there are 2 fundamentally different ways to secure communication. The first is substance-based security. Make the reasoning so complex, so logically airtight, that no one can dispute it. This is how philosophy has tried to prove God for 2,000 years. Cosmological arguments, fine-tuning constants, irreducible complexity. The logic is often bulletproof, yet the conversion rate is very low. The second method is identity-based security. Validate the source. RSA does this through an elegant mathematical trick. You generate 2 enormous prime numbers, multiply them together, and publish the product. Anyone can see the product, the public key, but only the person who knows the original primes, the private key, can produce a valid cryptographic stamp. The math runs easily in one direction and is functionally impossible to reverse. And right about now, something in your head is forming the question, so what does this have to do with Sinai? And that's exactly the right question. Rabbi Yehuda Levi answered it in the year 1140. In the Kuzari, the king of the Khazars asks why the Jewish sage introduced his God as the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who took the children of Israel out of Egypt, rather than the creator of heaven and earth. Halevi's insight is the single most underappreciated move in the history of theology. Cosmic origination is a claim. The Exodus is a receipt. Any religion can assert its God fashioned the world. The position is unfalsifiable. A deist God, a pantheist God, a simulation architect, all can stake the same ground. None can be distinguished by it. This is the equivalent of an unsigned letter. The logic may be brilliant, but the identity proof is absent. Yet the Exodus operates on an entirely different layer. God did not reveal himself to a single prophet in a cave or through an angel delivering a manuscript. He revealed himself to an entire nation, millions of people, simultaneously, in public. This is the private key. Rabbi Lawrence Kellerman, while studying at Harvard and UCLA, cataloged 25 recurring themes across every revelation narrative in recorded history. He could reconstruct any religion from those themes, except one. In 4,000 years, only once has a group claimed that God spoke to a group of people. The Jewish testimony at Har Sinai is structurally singular. It is the RSA imprint of revelation. Here is where the authentication code locks into place. Philosophical proofs are substance-based security. They try to establish God by the impressiveness of the reasoning. They fail not because the logic is bad, but because the architecture is wrong. You cannot verify an origin by the beauty of an unsigned letter. The cosmological case proves something caused the universe. It cannot tell you who. Fine-tuning proves the constants look designed. It cannot name the designer. Every such proof terminates at a generic originator, a public key with no corresponding private key. God knew this. At one moment when the entire system was being initialized, he opened not with a resume, I fashioned everything, but with the identity stamp, I am the one who took you out. He established himself through an event the recipients had personally witnessed, and that no subsequent generation could fabricate, because you cannot convince an entire nation that their grandparents experienced something they never heard about. The Exodus is not the weaker credential. It is the only credential. The calendar itself encodes the priority. The Talmud in Rosh Hashanah records a debate between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua. Was the world fashioned in Tishrei or in Nisan? Kabbalistic resolution taught by Lubavitch and Rebbe based on Tosfos and Rosh Hashanah 27 is that both are true. In Machshava, divine thought, the world's genesis began in Nisan. In Dibor, divine speech, it unfolded in Tishrei. Even the calendar subordinates origination to redemption. The world was conceived so that it could be redeemed. The private key was built into the system before the system existed. This is the deep structure of what the authentication code reveals. The entire created order exists as the context for a relationship. And relationships are not proven by credentials. They are proven by shared experience. I am the God who made the stars is a resume. I am the God who walked you out of slavery is a marriage certificate. Here is the challenge. And I'm going to ask you to do something small that carries more weight than you think. A child comes home from university and says, how do you know Judaism's real? A coworker, generally curious, asks, what makes your religion different? A quiet voice inside your own head during a long commute or a sleepless night whispers, do I actually believe this? Or am I just continuing what my parents started? The instinct is to reach for design arguments, fine-tuning, the complexity of DNA. These are real evidences, but they are unsigned letters. They indicate a generic designer. They do not establish the God of the Torah. And the person across the table knows it. That is why the conversation almost always stalls. The authentication code redirects it to the only layer that resolves what took place at the mountain. Not what God can do, but what he did in front of witnesses, with an unbroken chain of transmission from that day to this one. This week, before Pesach cleaning starts to swallow the calendar, pick someone, a child, a spouse, a friend, a chavrusa, someone who has either asked the question or is carrying it silently. Sit with them for 10 minutes. Do not start with how the universe began. Start with what happened at the mountain. Discuss how every other religion traces its founding to the one person's private revelation. Ours is the only one that claims God spoke to an entire nation. Either that happened or it did not. And if it did not, someone had to convince millions of people that the grandparents experienced something none of them had ever heard of. That has never occurred in the history of civilization. Then listen. Do not argue. The cryptographic mark, once presented, does its own work. If this reframed how you think about the God debate, click the share button right now and send this to someone who needs to hear it. That one click might be the reason why someone's Seder hits differently this year. 4 billion devices trust the cryptographic stamp over a statement. Banks, hospitals, encrypted conversations across the globe, they all run on a single principle. Identity outranks claims. God encoded that principle into the first sentence of the Torah's transmission 3,200 years before the first computer was built. He did not open with the wrong credential. He opened with the only one that can never be forged. That was part 1 of 4. In part 2, we go deeper. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. And if you want to see how quantum mechanics proves the Bible is the age of the universe, click here. And to dig deeper into our unbroken chain going back 3,338 years, click over here. And if you'd like to dedicate or sponsor one of these classes, click on the link in the description. Thank you for partnering with me as we uncover reality's blueprint together.